like, and share this video because it is free.
The emergency klaxons echoed through the crystalline chambers of the Galactic Council Station as representatives from 47 species filed into their designated atmospheric zones. The transparent barriers hummed with energy, each one maintaining the precise environmental conditions required to keep the various delegates alive. Counselor Vextera's chitinous exoskeleton clicked nervously against her methane-rich breathing apparatus as she observed the two humans standing in the center of the chamber, unprotected by any environmental suit. Dr. Sarah Chun adjusted her simple black jacket and checked the data pad in her hands one final time. Beside her, Commander Jake Morrison stood at parade rest, his military bearing unchanged despite the magnitude of accusations leveled against him. The charges were severe enough to warrant immediate expulsion from galactic society. Falsification of planetary data, endangering galactic security, and conspiracy to conceal the true nature of humanity's homeworld. The defendants will state their names and record, announced Speaker Zilmoth, his translucent blue form rippling with disapproval within his aqueous containment unit. Dr. Sarah Chun, xenobiologist and planetary classification specialist for the Human Colonial Authority, she replied, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation matrix. Commander Jake Morrison, military advisor and survival operations coordinator for Human Deep Space Command. The accusations hung in the recycled air like a toxic cloud. For 3 standard years, these two humans had supposedly maintained elaborate fiction that Earth was merely another garden world, suitable for basic colonization protocols. The discovery of Earth's true nature had sent shockwaves through every level of galactic government. The lies had started unraveling 6 months ago when the colony ship Harmony arrived at Kepler 442b, a world the Galactic Council had designated as Class II habitable with mild climate variations and stable atmospheric conditions. The planetary survey had been conducted by Zephyrian scouts, who reported ideal conditions for most carbon-based life forms. Within 48 hours of landing, 17 colonists were dead. The acid rain began on the second day. The Zephyrian surveys had noted the precipitation as mineral-rich moisture with beneficial trace elements. For humans, it was concentrated sulfuric acid that dissolved their equipment, contaminated their water supplies, and burned through their clothing. The colonists' emergency shelters lasted less than 6 hours before the metal frameworks began to collapse. Emergency evacuation protocols saved the remaining 233 colonists, but the pattern was already emerging. Proxima Centauri had been classified as possessing a stable ecosystem with diverse microbiological activity. The Council's crystalline surveyors had found the microscopic life forms fascinating and harmless. For humans, they were flesh-eating parasites that burrowed through skin in minutes, reproducing in living tissue until their hosts collapsed from internal hemorrhaging. The evacuation from Proxima Centauri required military intervention. Commander Morrison had led the rescue operation personally, watching as medical teams fought to save colonists whose bodies were being consumed from within. 43 died before the medical teams could synthesize effective treatments. Trappist, one he represented the pinnacle of Council classification success. 3 different species had submitted survey reports praising the world's perfect atmospheric balance and enhanced cognitive atmospheric compounds. The Aquarian delegates had been particularly enthusiastic, noting that the atmospheric composition induced pleasant states of heightened awareness in their test subjects. For humans, the hallucinogenic spores in the atmosphere triggered complete psychological breakdowns within hours of exposure. Colonists began experiencing vivid hallucinations that made them unable to distinguish reality from nightmare. Some walked into the planet's acidic lakes, convinced they were returning to Earth's oceans. Others attempted to communicate with the planet's crystalline formations, believing them to be their deceased family members. The evacuation required sedating every single colonist. Dr. Chun had begun her investigation after the 3rd failed colony. Her xenobiology background made her uniquely qualified to understand the systematic errors in the Council's classification protocols. Working in secret, she analyzed atmospheric readings, soil compositions, and biological surveys from dozens of worlds classified as habitable by Council standards. The pattern was undeniable. Every single world classified as suitable for human colonization was suitable only for the species that had conducted the original survey. The Zephyrian-surveyed worlds required low gravity and minimal oxygen. Crystalline-surveyed worlds needed silicon-based atmospheric components. Aquarian worlds demanded high humidity and alkaline conditions that would burn human lungs. Meanwhile, Commander Morrison had been conducting his own investigation through military intelligence channels. His analysis focused on the survival requirements of various council species and their environmental tolerances. The data he compiled painted an even more disturbing picture of the classification system's fundamental flaws. The breaking point came when Dr. Chen accessed the original survey data for Earth itself. The Council's classification of humanity's homeworld as a Class X death world wasn't based on any scientific analysis. It was an assumption made purely because no Council species could survive Earth's atmospheric composition for more than minutes. The irony was staggering. Earth, classified as uninhabitable, supported 8 billion humans in diverse climates across 6 continents. Meanwhile, the Council's paradise worlds were killing human colonists within days of arrival. Dr. Chun and Commander Morrison had requested this emergency session after compiling their evidence. The Council had attempted to suppress their findings, claiming the data was classified for galactic security reasons. When news of the failed colonies began spreading through independent media channels, the Council had no choice but to address the accusations publicly. Now they stood in the chamber where galactic policy was made, facing representatives of species who had never questioned their own environmental biases. The evidence in their possession would not just embarrass the Council. It would fundamentally challenge the entire foundation of galactic civilization's expansion protocols. Speaker Zilmatha's form darkened to a deeper blue, indicating his growing agitation. The charges against you are unprecedented in Council history. You stand accused of deliberately concealing the hostile nature of your homeworld, falsifying environmental data, and endangering the lives of multiple species through systematic deception. Dr. Chen stepped forward, her data pad glowing with compiled evidence. We're prepared to present our findings, Speaker Zilmath. But I think the Council should prepare itself for some uncomfortable truths about who's really been falsifying environmental data. The chamber fell silent except for the hum of life support systems. 47 different atmospheric environments maintained their delicate balance, while 2 humans stood unprotected in what the Council considered a standard, breathable atmosphere. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone present. Dr. Chen activated her holographic display, and the chamber's central projector came to life with a 3-dimensional representation of Earth spinning slowly in the artificial void. The blue and green marble looked deceptively peaceful against the black backdrop, its white cloud formation swirling gently over the continents. Let me present the actual environmental data for the world you classified as a Class X death world, Dr. Chen announced, her voice carrying the weight of irrefutable science. The first data streams began flowing across the hologram in luminous text that every species translation matrix could interpret. Atmospheric composition: 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen. A collective gasp echoed through multiple environmental chambers. Counselor Vexara's chitinous limbs scraped against her containment unit as she recoiled. For her methane-breathing species, oxygen was a corrosive poison that would burn through lung tissue in seconds. Surface gravity, 1 standard G, based on human baseline measurements. More agitated clicking from the Zephyrian delegation. Their homeworld gravity was barely 1/3 of Earth's. The crushing force would flatten their hollow bone physiology in minutes. Average temperature range, -40 to +58 degrees Celsius, with regular seasonal variations. The crystalline delegate's silicon-based form flickered nervously. Their species required constant temperatures within a 2-degree range to maintain molecular cohesion. Dr. Chen gestured, and the hologram zoomed in on Earth's weather systems. Massive spiral formations materialized in the display, their scale becoming apparent as they dwarfed entire continents. Hurricane systems generate sustained winds exceeding 300 kilometers per hour, with storm surges reaching heights of 15 meters. These occur regularly throughout our tropical regions. The Aquarian speaker's containment unit bubbled violently as his form contracted in terror. The gentle water currents of his homeworld never exceeded a few centimeters per second. Earth's weather patterns would pulverize any structure his species could construct. Tornado activity produces wind speeds reaching 500 kilometers per hour in concentrated vortexes. Seismic activity results in earthquakes measuring up to 9.5 on our magnitude scale, with tectonic shifts that can reshape entire coastlines in minutes. Volcanic eruptions inject sulfur dioxide and ash into the atmosphere for months at a time. The display shifted to show geological cross-sections of Earth's active fault lines and volcanic systems. Counselor Mordex from the subterranean tunnel dweller species pressed against the back of his chamber. His people's carefully maintained underground cities would collapse instantly in even minor seismic events. Our planet experiences a 24-hour day-night cycle, creating temperature fluctuations that can exceed 30 degrees Celsius in a single rotation period. Dr. Chen's voice remained clinically detached as she cataloged Earth's hostilities. Solar radiation levels vary dramatically with seasonal changes, ozone depletion events, and atmospheric disturbances. Commander Morrison stepped forward as the hologram shifted to display Earth's biological hazards. Now, let's discuss the life forms that share our world. The display populated with hundreds of species, each one tagged with lethality ratings that made several council members' environmental suits emit distress signals. Apex predators include the African lion, capable of crushing skulls with jaw pressure exceeding 400 pounds per square inch. Saltwater crocodiles reach lengths of 7 meters and can remain motionless for hours before striking with enough force to shatter bone. Great white sharks detect blood in concentrations as low as 1 part per billion and can accelerate to speeds of 56 kilometers per hour underwater. The images were more horrifying than any council species had imagined. Creatures with massive claws, serrated teeth, and predatory intelligence that had evolved specifically to kill other Earth life forms. The fact that humans shared a planet with these monsters seemed impossible. Our arachnid species include the funnel web spider, whose venom can kill an adult human in 15 minutes without treatment. The box jellyfish's tentacles deliver neurotoxins that cause cardiac arrest within minutes of contact. Venomous snakes inject compounds that destroy blood cells, nervous systems, or cause complete muscular paralysis. The biological threats continued mounting. Microscopic organisms that had shaped human evolution through constant warfare at the cellular level. Bacteria that could consume living tissue, viruses that rewrote genetic code, parasites that controlled host behavior for their own reproductive advantage. Plant life presents additional hazards. Oleander contains cardiac glycosides lethal in small doses. Castor beans produce ricin, one of our most potent biological toxins. Poison ivy triggers severe immune responses that can hospitalize victims for weeks. Many flowering plants produce airborne pollens that cause respiratory failure in sensitive individuals. Dr. Chin resumed control of the presentation. Human settlements exist in every one of these environments. We have permanent cities and deserts where daytime temperatures exceed 50 degrees Celsius and nighttime temperatures drop below freezing. We maintain research stations in Antarctic regions where temperatures reach minus 80 degrees Celsius and hurricane-force winds persist for months. The hologram displayed human cities. New York surrounded by winter storms that would freeze most council species solid. Dubai rising from desert sands that would desiccate aquatic species in minutes. Denver thriving at altitudes that would cause fatal decompression for low-pressure adapted species. Commander Morrison's military bearing intensified as he presented operational data. Human military forces conduct routine operations in environments that would kill council species instantly. Desert warfare in temperatures exceeding 60 degrees Celsius. Arctic operations in conditions that freeze exposed metal. Jungle combat in 90% humidity with constant biological threats. High-altitude missions at elevations where oxygen levels drop below sustainable thresholds for most species. The display showed footage of human soldiers operating in these conditions, not just surviving, but executing complex military operations. The implications staggered the council delegates. These weren't emergency survival situations. They were routine military exercises. Human recreational activities include mountain climbing at altitudes exceeding 8,000 meters, where oxygen levels are insufficient to support consciousness in most species. Deep-sea diving to depths where pressure would compress council species' physiology beyond recognition. Extreme sports that deliberately expose participants to gravitational forces exceeding 3 GS. The final revelation hit the Council like a physical blow. Humans engaged in these deadly activities voluntarily, for entertainment, what the Council classified as unsurvivable death world conditions. Humans considered recreational challenges. Dr. Chen's voice cut through the shocked silence. The planet you've classified as a Class X death world supports 8 billion humans across 6 continents, thriving in conditions that would exterminate every Council species within hours of exposure. She paused, letting the full weight of that statement settle over the assembly. Now, let's discuss why your classification system is not just wrong, it's systematically backwards. Dr. Chen's data pad connected to the chamber's central systems, and new holographic displays materialize around the stunned Council delegates. Since the Council seems confused about proper planetary classification standards, let me demonstrate how a truly scientific approach works. Her finger touched the interface, and the first world appeared in the projection field. Zephyr Prime, homeworld of Counselor Vexteraz species. The planet materialized as a pale, nearly featureless sphere with wispy atmospheric clouds. Surface gravity, 0.3 standard G. Atmospheric composition, 67% methane, 31% nitrogen, 2% trace gases. Average temperature range, -12 to -8 degrees Celsius. Weather patterns, gentle atmospheric currents, maximum wind speeds of 15 kilometers per hour. Commander Morrison stepped aside the display, his military analysis beginning. Using human survival protocols, we classify Zephyr Prime as an extreme low-gravity anoxic death trap. Human survival time without environmental suits, approximately 4 minutes before gravitational disorientation causes fatal falls. The methane atmosphere would cause immediate asphyxiation, while the sub-freezing temperatures would induce hypothermia within 12 minutes of exposure. Counselor Vexteraz's exoskeleton rattled against her containment unit. Her paradise world, celebrated throughout the galaxy for its peaceful serenity, was being dissected as a frozen wasteland that would kill humans faster than most registered toxins. The hologram shifted to display the next world. Aquaria, homeworld of Speaker Zilmoth. A water-covered planet appeared, its surface broken only by small archipelagos of crystalline formations. 100% humidity at all atmospheric levels. Atmospheric composition, nitrogen-oxygen base with 12% water vapor and trace amounts of methane. Water pH levels averaging 9.2, approaching alkaline saturation. Temperature stability, plus 18 degrees Celsius with less than 1 degree variation globally. Dr. Chen's analysis continued remorselessly. Human classification, toxic alkaline swamp world. The saturated atmosphere would cause pulmonary edema within hours as human lungs filled with condensed moisture. The alkaline water would burn through human skin tissue and cause severe chemical burns to respiratory systems. While Speaker Zilmoth's species thrives in these conditions, humans would experience respiratory failure within 6 hours, followed by complete organ shutdown. Speaker Zilmoth's aqueous form contracted violently within his containment unit. The gentle, life-giving waters of his homeworld were being revealed as a corrosive environment that would dissolve human visitors from the inside out. Crystallos, the homeworld of the mineral collective delegates. The hologram displayed a world that seemed to be carved from living gemstone, its surface reflecting prismatic light in breathtaking displays. Silicon-based atmospheric composition with crystalline particulate matter in constant suspension. 0 organic compounds detected in atmospheric analysis. Electromagnetic radiation at frequencies that interact directly with silicon-based neural networks. Gravity, 1.8 standard G. Commander Morrison's voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. Human classification, high-gravity sterile mineral wasteland. The silicon particulates would lacerate human lung tissue with each breath, causing massive internal hemorrhaging. The electromagnetic radiation would disrupt human neural activity, causing seizures and brain damage within minutes. The complete absence of organic compounds means no possibility of sustaining carbon-based life through any known biological processes. The pattern was becoming undeniably clear to every delegate in the chamber. Each species' paradise was another species' nightmare. The Council's classification system wasn't scientifically based. It was a collection of species-specific preferences masquerading as universal standards. Dr. Chen activated a new display showing statistical analysis across hundreds of worlds. Our comprehensive review of Council classification data reveals systemic bias in 94% of all planetary assessments. Class 1 paradise worlds are habitable exclusively by the species that conducted the original survey. Class 2 habitable worlds are marginal for the surveying species and lethal for most others. Class X Deathworlds are simply planets that don't match the narrow environmental parameters of Council species. The numbers were damning. Pie charts and statistical models filled the holographic space, showing correlation coefficients that prove beyond doubt that Council classifications were based on species' self-interest rather than scientific methodology. Commander Morrison accesses military databases, displaying survival time comparisons that sent shockwaves through the assembly. Direct survival analysis reveals a fundamental flaw in Council assumptions. Average Council species survival time on Earth without environmental protection, 3.7 minutes. Average human survival time on Council homeworlds, 12 to 48 hours, depending on specific environmental challenges and available equipment. The implication struck the chamber like a physical force. Humans could survive longer on any Council homeworld than Council species could survive on Earth. Yet Earth was classified as the Death World, while Council worlds were deemed habitable. Human colonization records show successful long-term settlements on 47 worlds previously classified as Class X Death Worlds by Council standards. Dr. Chen's presentation continued with footage of thriving human cities on worlds the Council had deemed uninhabitable. These settlements have maintained stable populations for decades, with birth rates exceeding death rates and expanding infrastructure development. The evidence was overwhelming. Humans weren't just surviving on death worlds, they were building civilizations. Meanwhile, Council species required massive life support systems to visit each other's homeworlds for diplomatic meetings. Furthermore, Commander Morrison added, human environmental adaptation technology demonstrates superior versatility compared to Council species life support systems. Our atmospheric processors can modify planetary environments to support multiple species types. Council technology is designed only to maintain single-species optimal conditions. The final piece of evidence appeared in the holographic display, survival equipment comparisons. Human environmental suits were compact, efficient, and designed for extended operations in hostile environments. Council life support systems were bulky, energy-intensive, and required constant maintenance to function in anything other than species-specific optimal conditions. Dr. Chen's voice cut through the stunned silence like a surgical blade. The Council's classification system isn't just scientifically invalid. It's actively harmful to galactic expansion and colonization efforts. Your species-centered bias has resulted in the deaths of human colonists who trusted Council recommendations, while simultaneously preventing exploration of worlds that could support multiple species with proper preparation. She stepped closer to the central podium, her datapad glowing with additional evidence files. We're not here to apologize for Earth's environment or humanity's survival capabilities. We're here to demand that the Council acknowledge its systematic failure to apply universal scientific standards to planetary classification. Commander Morrison's military bearing shifted to a more aggressive stance. The question is whether Earth is a death world. The question is why the Council's classification system is so fundamentally flawed that it labels thriving human worlds as uninhabitable while recommending worlds that have killed human colonists as paradise destinations. The chamber fell into absolute silence, except for the mechanical hum of life support systems. 47 different atmospheric environments continued their delicate balance, while 2 humans stood unprotected in what they had proven was actually one of the galaxy's more moderate environments. The Council's entire understanding of planetary habitability had been shattered in less than 3 hours of presentation. Now came the moment of truth. Would they acknowledge their errors, or would they attempt to maintain their failed system through political pressure and bureaucratic inertia? Speaker Zilmatha's aqueous form rippled with violent disturbances as he called for emergency recess. This session is suspended pending verification of presented data. His voice carried through the translation matrix with barely controlled panic. Within minutes, The great chamber emptied as delegates retreated to their species-specific communication centers. Behind the sealed doors of the Council's administrative complex, chaos erupted across 47 diplomatic missions simultaneously. Emergency transmissions flooded subspace channels as species representatives demanded immediate explanations from their homeworld governments. The Zephyrian delegation discovered their atmospheric analysis teams had never bothered to test oxygen tolerance levels, assuming their methane-based readings were universally applicable. Crystalline mineral surveyors admitted they had classified worlds based solely on silicon content, ignoring biological requirements entirely. The Aquarian diplomatic corps faced the most humiliating revelation. Their enhanced cognitive atmospheric compounds were actually hallucinogenic toxins that had been slowly poisoning their own survey teams. The pleasant states of heightened awareness they had reported were symptoms of neurological damage from prolonged exposure to their own homeworld's atmosphere. Counselor Vextera's emergency communication with Zephyr Prime lasted 18 minutes before the connection was severed. Her government had discovered that their peaceful, stable environment was maintained by automated systems that had been operating for millennia. Without constant technological intervention, Zephyr Prime's atmosphere would shift to toxic compositions within decades. They weren't living in natural paradise. They were existing in an artificial life support bubble. Meanwhile, independent verification requests poured in from non-council species across the galaxy. The hegemony of free worlds, the Outer Rim Collective, and the Independent Systems Alliance all demanded access to human classification data. News of the Council's systematic failures spread through unofficial channels faster than the Council could implement communication blackouts. The evidence avalanche began when Commander Morrison activated his personal military authorization codes. Classified survival data is now declassified under Emergency Disclosure Protocol 7. His data streams flooded the galactic information networks before the Council could intervene. Footage from human colonies on worlds labeled as Class X Deathworlds began broadcasting across every major information channel. New Jakarta on Kepler, 186F, a world the Council had classified as extreme thermal variation with toxic atmospheric compounds, showed a thriving metropolis of 2 million humans. The city's environmental systems had not only adapted to the planet's extreme day-night temperature cycles, but had converted them into an efficient energy generation system. Poor humanity on Wolf 1061c displayed even more impressive adaptation. The Council had classified the world as high-radiation environment with catastrophic seismic instability. The human settlement had built directly into the planet's fault lines, using geothermal energy to power massive atmospheric processors that supported not just humans, but 3 other species that had joined the colony voluntarily. The most damaging footage came from Proxima Centauri C, a world the Council had never even surveyed because their long-range analysis deemed it obviously uninhabitable. The human city of New Geneva housed 800,000 colonists in a thriving industrial complex that exported rare metals throughout human space. Time-lapse photography showed the city's growth over 15 years, from initial landing to sprawling urban center. Medical data accompanied the visual evidence. Human colonists on Deathworlds showed lower mortality rates than Council species maintain on their own homeworlds. Birth rates exceeded death rates on 38 of the 47 human-classified Deathworld colonies. Children born on these extreme worlds developed enhanced environmental adaptations that surpassed even baseline human capabilities. The survival statistics were undeniable. Humans succeeded where Council species failed, consistently and measurably. More significantly, they succeeded while maintaining cultural diversity, technological innovation, and population growth rates that suggested unlimited expansion potential. Testimonials from human colonists destroyed any remaining Council credibility. Maria Santos, a third-generation resident of the uninhabitable world Gliese 667cc, described her childhood playing in environments that would instantly kill most Council species. Her grandmother had arrived on the first colony ship, expecting to struggle for survival. Instead, she had helped build a civilization that now served as a regional trade hub for 7 different species. Dr. James Park, the chief medical officer for the Kepler 452b colony, provided statistical analysis showing that human adaptation rates improved with each generation born on challenging worlds. The children of Deathworld colonists developed enhanced cardiovascular systems, improved radiation resistance, and expanded environmental tolerance ranges that exceeded anything seen in Council species' evolutionary history. The implications were staggering. Humans weren't just surviving on Deathworlds. They were evolving into something beyond current galactic civilization's comprehension. Each generation was more capable than the last, with adaptation rates that suggested unlimited environmental flexibility. When the emergency session reconvened 6 hours later, the chamber's atmosphere had changed completely. Council delegates avoided eye contact with the human representatives. Several species' environmental suits displayed stress indicators as their occupants struggled with the psychological impact of revealed inadequacy. Dr. Chun and Commander Morrison returned to the central floor with a formal document displayed on the main holographic projector. The Human Colonial Authority presents the following non-negotiable requirements for continued participation in galactic civilization. The ultimatum was comprehensive and devastating. Complete overhaul of the planetary classification system using multi-species survival parameters. Mandatory human consultation on all future world classifications. Joint Human Council survey teams for any world intended for multi-species colonization. Reparations for the families of colonists killed by faulty Council recommendations. Full access to Council survey archives for independent human analysis. The final requirement struck deepest. Establishment of Human Deep Space Command as the galaxy's official Deathworld colonization specialists, with authority to override Council classifications for any world deemed suitable for human habitation. Commander Morrison's voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. These aren't requests. These are the terms under which humanity will continue operating within existing galactic frameworks. Rejection of these terms will result in complete human withdrawal from Council jurisdiction and the establishment of independent human space under our own classification standards. The unspoken threat resonated throughout the chamber. Humans would continue expanding regardless of Council approval. They had proven capable of colonizing worlds the Council couldn't even survey safely. Independent human expansion would bypass Council authority entirely, creating a rival power structure based on superior survival capabilities. Speaker Zilmatha's form had darkened to deep blue-black as he processed the implications. The Council faced an impossible choice: acknowledge their systematic failures and accept human oversight, or watch humanity establish an independent sphere of influence that would eventually surpass Council capabilities entirely. The vote was called without discussion. 47 species considered their options in the face of undeniable evidence. One by one, the environmental chambers lit with approval indicators, not because they wanted to accept human terms, but because they had no viable alternative. Dr. Chun and Commander Morrison exchanged no words of triumph as they gathered their materials. The victory was measured in lives that would be saved by accurate planetary classifications, in colonies that would thrive instead of dying, in the establishment of humanity's position as the galaxy's premier survivors. As they walked from the chamber, their footsteps echoed in the silence left by a galactic civilization forced to confront its own limitations. The Council would never again view Earth as a death world, because they had learned that by human standards, there were no true death worlds, only worlds that other species lacked the capability to master. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy through military force or technological superiority. They had conquered through the simple demonstration that survival was not about finding perfect conditions, but about adapting to whatever conditions existed. In a universe of fragile civilizations dependent on narrow environmental parameters, adaptability was the ultimate power. The galaxy would never be the same.